So anyway, that's my name. And so let's start from here. So okay, like you go to illustrators meetings and gatherings and nobody asks you what you do or like what you do and they ask you and you say, oh, I'm an illustrator, and then everybody understands. But of course, like everyday life is not like that. I usually lie. And when I started out, I was so happy to say I'm an illustrator, and nobody understand what illustrators do. I realized that soon enough, and then sometimes, or if it's like like taxi driver asking me, and then should I explain? And I just say I'm a graphic designer, which is not a lie because like illustration is like a part of bigger definition of graphic design. But normally this is what I say, and which makes people understand is I draw pictures for magazines, and I also draw pictures for newspapers. And like you start like of course some of you sitting here are professional illustrators, but when you're still in school and then you start working, just keep in mind 90% of the population of United States do not know there is an occupation called illustrator exists. And which I kind of think it's fine because it keeps you down to earth and sort of humble and be a regular person. If you're a rock star and then yeah, I'm in a band, and then you don't need to be, we don't need to be full of ourselves. So we work for magazines and newspapers, which people do see our work, our name is on there, and I'm happy every time I see it. But they get thrown away mostly in a day or a week or a month. And I'm pretty happy creating pictures like that, makes people look for a while, and then but I'm anonymous, nobody knows who I am, and then it keeps me down to earth. And I think that's important. So I took photo of some random magazines that are sitting around in my studio. And so some of them are not here anymore, but you can kind of see what kind of magazines there are, like Nylon fashion magazine, Premiere, Rolling Stone, those are entertainment magazines, and King and Playboy. Like you might be thinking, why is there a Playboy? I actually have Playboy in my apartment, at least a few of them, because they hire a lot of great illustrators and they're great people to work with. So that's cool. I mean, some of my friends say for my religious reasons, I don't want to work for Playboy. I think that's cool too. And anyway, so in the center, there's a Business Week, Money, Fast Company, Harvard Business Review, blah, blah, blah. And so there are lots and lots of business magazines, and those are the ones they need illustrations a lot. And why? Because usually, nowadays especially, when a magazine or newspaper needs something to fill the page other than type, then they immediately think about photographs. Like photographs, it's just the way it is for the last 50 years, and you have to admit. But then, if a business magazine always hire photographers, what do they do? Like businessmen in suits walking around, or computer, people using computer. It gets boring, right? And that's when they need pictures, because pictures we illustrators create. We can do things sometimes photographs can never do. So when you get stuck with ideas, think of let me come up with some ideas photo can never achieve. And if you can come up with that idea, I think you're in a good direction. So sometimes, on a good day, I do magazine covers. And these are magazine spreads, full page, and openers. These are the bigger illustrations editorial illustrators want to do. But then what we can't not forget is, most of the time, us editorial illustrators, what pays our bills are these small illustrations called spots. Spots are usually smaller than quarter of a page, and it doesn't pay as well, and it's small, and there is not much exposure, but there are lots and lots of them. And why do magazines and newspapers need them? Because imagine in your head magazines full of text from top of the page to the bottom of the page, like page after page. Do anyone, even people who are not interested in photo or illustration, do anyone want to keep reading? And answer is no, right? And so these spot illustrations are there. So we give the readers the place to rest their eye and make images that are intriguing so they want to read the article. And so these are small, but it's a very important part of what we do. And so I'll show you some of the applications of illustrations using my work. These are book covers. And by the way, the book covers in the front, two of them in the front, these are actually Italian books. And I did not, obviously I don't read Italian, so I didn't read them. But what's cool about being an illustrator right now is that with internet, if you have website, if you build it, people will come. If you build it, they will come. Somehow people will slowly but surely, your website will be seen and seen by anyone in the world. And so, they say illustration is dying. There are not a lot of illustrations. There are not a lot of magazines or newspapers. Yes, nobody knows the future. But what we know is that now your market is world. Up to 10 years ago, your market was your country, and also maybe, even before that, maybe your city. Now you can work with anyone in the world. So how I got the illustration gig from Italy, I'm not quite sure. They contacted me. They said they saw my site and they liked it and they wanted to commission me. So I think in that sense, future of illustration has great potential. These are comic book covers I do. I started these recently, which is kind of fun. It's like book covers, but slightly different. There is a character that I have to redraw from the inside and then make them look like them and also make them look like they're mine. So I'm enjoying this process. I'm doing it monthly right now. And CD covers. Of course, there aren't a lot of CDs, but I think there still will be because who doesn't like beautiful objects? MP3s, yeah, buying from iTunes store. I do it, but I always love the graphics and I always love how they're designed, how they have illustrations. So there might be less, but there are some more to come. And this is an example of package design. This is a cell phone. I think it's on sale in Hong Kong, which is kind of cool. And this is a T-shirt. And T-shirt is becoming bigger and bigger. And it's actually kind of funny because I never did anything fashion related until this came out. And if you know me, and of course you don't, but now kind of you do, is that I never wear T-shirts. I never wear T-shirts. But it's fun when all my friends wear my T-shirts. So I ask all my friends to take photo of you wearing the T-shirt. Actually, the girl in the middle smiling, Yuki, she's here today and she's an old friend of mine. And so I'm really happy that you're here and you're wearing my T-shirt. And actually, she sent me this photo by surprise. I didn't know that she knew I had a T-shirt, and she went to the Gap and bought it. So that was really nice of her. And so, like, of course, there is advertising, and I'm just showing, like, like show off. So, like, not all my jobs are this cool, and which I'll show you later on. So this is a subway system in London, and I did advertising for Tiger Beer, and so I guess like I didn't go to London, but someone who's an illustrator in Scotland went to London and he saw this and took photo and sent it to me, and we're like total strangers, but it's so nice of them, and that shows like actually illustration community is really like nice and friendly and helpful, and which is another thing I love about being in this industry. And so this is a New York Times book review cover, and the one in the center is mine. And they hired all these different illustrators to draw Abraham Lincoln, and then they put them together and made the cover, which I really love. And they're all different, but they all look like Lincoln, which is kind of nice. And it's a magazine cover. So as I show some of the works I've done, I'll speak a little bit about my background. I actually started late in the illustration industry. I've been illustrating full-time for about 7 years now. I know I'm Asian and I look young, but I'm not as young as you think I am, which is not something I want to advertise, but I grew up in a traditional, like very ordinary Japanese family, and my parents, or like no one in my extended family is a working artist. So my parents wanted me to pursue something that can generate money, and like they're like, oh my God, you cannot be an artist because like you're gonna starve, and like like they only see all these like tragic artist movies. You know those, right? And then that's what parents think how we gonna be. So, I love my parents, so I went to business school and majored in advertising and marketing. The reason why is because advertising and marketing are the most creative of the business field. And I always loved to draw and paint as a kid. And so like I ended up getting a job in PR in a big corporation in Tokyo. And I worked there for actually 11 years after getting a degree in business. And yeah, I know, thank you. So about, well, I don't want to reveal my age, but I can say vaguely. Like about when I hit like age 30, and then I was walking down the hallway, and there are all these women, they've been working there for, 20 years, 30 years, and they're about to retire, and none of them looked happy. And I wasn't happy. I was not happy from day one. It just didn't suit me. And I was like, oh my God, like I don't want to be like them like 20 years from now. And so then it hit me, and I seriously started to think I really have to do something so I won't regret what I did or not do. And then I decided to apply to art school in New York. And actually, I grew up partially in New York between age of 12 and 15. And I had problem adjusting to a very old-fashioned Japanese life after I went back. So it was always a struggle. And so I think when I was like 34, I actually started freshman in art school at School of Visual Arts in New York, and all my classmates were half my age. But it was kind of cool because, like you might not think, but when you're out of school for 11 years, you forget how to study. you haven't taken tests for 11 years, which I think for most of you, it's like unthinkable. But that's what I did. And actually, a lot of my friends who were 17, 18 back then, I'm still really good friends with them, and I keep in touch. So I think that was great. Anyway, so I did 4 years of school and graduated. Actually, after 2 years of undergraduate, the chairman of the illustration department said, like, you have a undergraduate degree. You don't need two undergraduate degrees. I'll help you. So you should try and switch to graduate school. And so I went to graduate school for 2 years, and I graduated in 2003, and I've been working since. And that's about it for my background story. And I want to talk a little bit about this piece. So, sometimes possible client call me and say, Yuko, I have a perfect job for you. And it can be one, great, two, disaster. Usually when people call you and say, I have a perfect job for you, they're kind of like pigeonholing and stereotyping you. So, and of course, not everything is great and not everything is awful, but as you can see in my work so far is because I'm from Japan and I know a lot about Japanese culture and history. I get anything Japanese related. And then it started to expand and I start to get anything Japan and China related. And last year, when the economy started to fall, I actually had an Olympic bubble, which was kind of funny because Beijing Olympics, we need dragons, and can you draw those? So that, no, seriously, but that can be fun. That can be sometimes a disaster, but usually fun. But this case, this one, actually, it's for Mother Jones. It's a great magazine based here in San Francisco. I love working with them. And our director called me and said, we have a perfect job for you. And okay, so what is the job? And it was about something called Zion Oil. And it's basically, the story is, there are all these companies, some are legitimate, some are very sketchy companies trying to dig oil in Israel because they claim that it's written in Bible and Torah. And I was like, okay, so I'm not from Israel. I don't know anything about oil. I'm not a Christian. I'm not a Jewish. And why is it a perfect job? And then, as an illustrator, when you get an article, you read the article, you study, and then the next thing you do is you start researching about the topic. And then you start photo researching about the topic, and that's how you come up with the idea. And so I learned so much about this topic. I had never been interested before this article or never knew that existed. And this is the illustration I came up with. And I'm pretty happy. I mean, I'm really happy with this final result. And so were the client, and which is very important. And what happened was, I became a little bit smarter. And no, seriously, right? Who knows about Zion Oil here? Raise your hand. Are you serious? There's someone who knows about Zion Oil? Okay, but anyway, it's just two of us here. So that shows I became a little bit smarter, right? And so in this occupation, this is the accumulation of this. We get articles, we read. Most of the times, it's not anything you were ever remotely interested. And then you learn about this, and you learn a little bit more about the world, and that will affect you as a person and as an artist later on. So I think this is what's great about this being an illustrator. And also my secret fantasy for after I retire, I must have so much accumulation of knowledge by them. I think I'll win Jeopardy. Maybe we can make a team of Illustrator Jeopardy team. So, wait, what's next? Okay, so I'll talk a little bit about this piece. Thank you. So you know who these people are, yeah? Yeah. So when I was in graduate school, I had guest speakers come in every week. That's part of the class. So imagine someone's standing here talking, and I'm sitting there. That was the situation not so long ago, and that will happen to you too. And Christoph Niemann, and he's one of the best working illustrators today, and he was actually one of the best speakers I ever had in the class. And he said, he was showing slides like this and talking, and he said, guys, half of the jobs out there for illustrators are some kind of portraiture. So if you guys know and you're good at drawing portraiture, great. But if you don't work on it, and so, that's what he said. And why I'm looking is because when he said it, I was sweating and freaking out. And I'm sure there are some of you who are in the same situation sitting right there. And a portrait is not for everyone. Some people do it naturally. I always respect those people. It never worked for me. But over the years, I'll show you my first job, and it was a portrait. It's after this. It's pretty funny. But portrait, I learned how to do portrait. Right now, I'm pretty comfortable. I can draw pretty much anyone. Some of them are easy, some of them are harder. But, I can do it, which is, the proof is this. But what I'm trying to say is, was it 3 summers ago, there was an article in New York Times science section, and it was a new study by Harvard Medical School. And my studio mate's friend came in and said, I read this very interesting article in New York Times. So it's about these people who can tell the difference between one face to the other. And he kept on and on and on. And my studio mate said, oh, that's exactly what Yuko is. So, no, it's for real. Ever since I can remember, everyone's face looked the same. And I teach. I have 30 students this year, 2 classes. I make them wear name tags every single week because I don't know who they are. And I tell them, if you see me on the street or if you see me on the elevator, hallway, and I ignore you, and it's not that I don't like you because I don't know you. And so the New York Times article was actually, they said this is a brain disorder called prosopagnosia. And then I contacted Harvard Medical School, no joke, that's real. And I wrote them, this is exactly what I've been experiencing all my life. And then they came to test me, and they said, yeah, it's very rare someone in the visual field have this, but you definitely have it. So from 3 years ago, I officially have a brain disorder called prosopagnosia. But anyway, thank you. So when I say this, people look at me so sad. Oh, but actually, it was a eye-opening, mind-clearing moment for me because I always thought I was lazy or something is wrong with. Obviously something is wrong with me, but once they put name to it, I felt so much better. Okay, it's not that I'm lazy. I can't do anything about it. It's fine. I live with it. And so anyway, long story short, like there are different ways to work on portraiture, and then like you just, if you're not good at it, you just have to figure out the way that works for you. But the conclusion of this small topic is that you know who they are, and I can draw them apart from all the rest of the people who exist in this world. So if I have a brain disorder and I get to do this, those people who you're sweating right there, you can learn and do it too. So it is a, thank you. It is a slide of encouragement. Yeah? Yeah. Woo! Thank you. So I'm gonna show you here from. Is it gonna be on the internet, because these things are not on my website? And so first, I'll show you my first job. And like most of you are students, so like I don't get as many laughs from the students like compared to the professionals and peers, because like obviously most of you are students, so you're still trying to get that first job. So regardless of how bad my first job is, it's still a first job, so you feel like, wow, that's published, but it's pretty terrible. So what I needed to draw was, first job was in summer of 2002 or something. I got excited, really excited. It was a Village Voice. Village Voice is a free newspaper in New York City, and they wanted me to draw Rosie O'Donnell and David Hyde Pierce holding Tom Cruise's hand and taking him out of the closet. So like this is the embarrassing part. Oh no. Okay, this actually got printed. It's pretty embarrassing. Tom Cruise should be okay. Like Rosie and David Hyde Pierce, they're okay. They're okay, but it's if there are three characters, the illustration should be about the interactions. But Tom Cruise is looking our way and smiling. He should be looking at Rosie and David, right? Why? Because I could not draw Tom Cruise looking that way. I tried. I knew if there are three characters, it's about the communications between these people. So I tried to draw him looking at them, and then I actually worked on Tom Cruise's face for 3 days and 3 nights just for this very low-paid black and white free paper job. And our director, he's still a good friend of mine. I mean, like, we became friends over the years. And he said, he didn't give up on me and said, Yuko, it's so not working. You should go to the newsstand. It was before, like, you can get all the reference material from internet. And I go, and there is a premiere. He's on the cover, and he's looking straight at you. And I think that's the easier way to draw him. In a big smile, white teeth, and go for it. So I did this. And, Tom Cruise looks like Tom Cruise, right? That's okay. That's okay. But then now, and I put it away, and I didn't see it for like 5 years, and I tried to put together a new PowerPoint presentation, and I wanted to show my embarrassing pieces, so I put it in there and then realized, why are Rosie and David in the closet? Right? But it's okay, it got printed, so I'll let it go. So I'll show you some other embarrassing. Maybe you don't think embarrassing, but I will explain in the details. So these are, the right one was for YM. Remember YM magazine when you were little? Yes? And 17 on the right? Oh no, left? Okay. So these were some of the earliest full-page color magazine jobs I got. It was after Tom Cruise's disaster. And, okay, let's look at the left one. 3 girls talking in the pizza parlor, and guys are checking them out. It was just that they wanted me to draw. And back then, I was starting out, and I was pretty confident that I can draw people well, but I couldn't draw anything else well. So they were like, yeah, can you draw pizza parlor, blah, blah, blah. And I was, again, sweating on the phone. By the way, that's back then when people still used to call you on the phone. And so I was like, pizza parlor, I can't draw environment, God. So I put them behind the glass that says pizza, right? So if it says pizza, of course everyone knows it's a pizza parlor, and she's eating pizza anyway. But other than that, I was like, oh my God, I don't know how to draw environment. So check out the guys. Their table and the chairs floating in nowhere. I can't believe these illustrations actually got approval, and they say, oh, they look great, and they got printed. So the right one is for YM, and it's about, good girls liking bad boys, typical cute stuff. And again, they're in the middle of nowhere of the Photoshop gradient world. I can laugh at them now because now I'm pretty confident. If you want me to draw a pizza parlor, I can draw any way you like. So it's okay. You become professional and you still learn and you, finish good enough work that you worked hard. They'll be okay. And then what does your teacher tell you? Never draw dollar signs. Actually, it's not that bad. But it's still dollar sign. Piggy bank? No. But, sometimes we have to do these jobs because either they want it or there is no other way, or the deadline's just too short and they just want to fill it with nice images. And piggy bank is bad, but it's kind of cute, right? It's kind of cute, and it fills the page. And when the idea is bad, the trick is try to do it as nicely as possible your way, and it kind of is okay. And other things your teachers say: don't draw businessmen in suits, and many of them. And then here comes the climax. Don't draw dragons as the symbol of China. Actually, I had a better idea. I still think about this. I had a really good idea for this. This is like a China, and labor is so cheap. Small business in U.S. is struggling, fighting against it. And I had more poetic solution. I didn't bring the sketch, and they said no, it's too big. We don't get it. Can you draw dragons? So, at the end of the day, it's not your personal work. When you work for the client, you have to make client happy, and then of course, if you can make yourself happy as well, it's great. But it's a job, and you have to make them happy. And regardless of how well you do, if your client is not happy, it's not a successful job. So I'm in peace with them, but they will never go into my website. So, most of you are illustration majors, and the teachers say oh, bring 5 sketches by next week, and you're 5, why 5, right? I teach, so I know. My students say that all the time, and then I show this. So this is what happens in the real world, and we're just trying to teach you to be ready for it. So this is not the worst nightmare job I had, but one of the pretty bad ones. So I'll show you all the sketches and stages. So here we go. By the way, the outcome was nice, and I don't have anything against the client. in case it goes on the internet. So it's a magazine cover illustration. And then when they say our publisher loves bright colors, that pretty much is a bad sign. So, too busy? How to find sanctuary in a stress world? And I did 2 sketches. Okay, even when they don't ask for how many sketches, let's try and give at least 2. They want choices. They want choices. And, I thought the right one was pretty nice. And the left one, I just wanted to do like personal workish thing. And they said the right is too children's booky. And the left they like, but they wanted to see in the office environment. And like, what do you mean office environment? But oftentimes clients need to see them to say no because they can't picture in their head. So you have to draw. And then like, office environment, duh, of course it doesn't work. And, right? And then, like they wanted to see the left one in the color sketch. And then like, they're like, maybe not. So let's put her on the magic carpet. Okay? And maybe with the joystick. And then they say like, maybe not, let's put her on the clock. What does that mean? And they were like, oh, it doesn't work. Maybe just the face. Oh, then it doesn't look like she's flying, so it doesn't work. And then in the meantime, this is a interior illustration I did for the same piece, and I only gave them 1 sketch because I was too busy doing the cover. And they were like, oh, it's great. And I did the finish and they loved it. And then they looked at it and like, oh, maybe we want the snail flying in the sky. So I did this, and they said, it looks like they're moving too fast. Because it's take your time and relax, right? And so I did it slow, and like, okay, it's looking great, but I like the head from the close-up head, and we want the wings to be removed, and then they actually put this together and sent it to me. This is the sketch we want. And okay, so finally, sketch got approval. But at this point, it was about 5 in the afternoon, and because we took so long, they needed the cover by the following morning. Ouch, but this is the life you have to live. And so, like, this is the final drawing I did. And thank God there's a lot of types, so there's a lot of empty space that worked out for me because of the limited time I had. And the bottom, the New York skyline, actually I did not draw them. You know what, like the bottom part might be cut off, so you can't see the whole thing here. But anyway, while I was drawing and coloring the main character, I was like, I don't have time to draw the New York skyline. So let me see if I have it somewhere. And if you're an illustrator working in New York for a year or two, you have at least 1 or 2 New York skyscraper illustrations. And so I found it, and I dragged the file onto the Photoshop, and it was too short. And it didn't have enough. I don't know if you can see it because the bottom is cut. It has a lot more. There's this much more. And I actually duplicated it. I don't know if you can see, but there are some buildings repeating. But I tried to add things on the back or in the front, so it's not just the same things repeating. And there's a trick. You guys don't live in New York, so you might not know, and it's a good trick to remember. In New York, there's only one Empire State Building and only one Chrysler Building. And if you keep those two right, the rest nobody cares. Nobody. So this is the final. And especially after the type, you don't see much, so it's all good. And I actually used that New York skyscrapers again many years later. So it's like 2004, so it's a while ago. Um, this year on the cover, and it looked good, and nobody notices, so it's okay. So the putting the disaster story aside, I'll give you a little bit of my studio tour. It's not big, so it doesn't take long. So this is where I work. I work in Manhattan, New York. And I don't know if I can trick you guys because you're Americans, but when I go to Europe, this next line really works. So my studio is located between Madison Square Garden and Times Square. And when I say this, all the Germans, and then like if you know New York, you guys know New York, right? It's the worst area in New York. Nobody wants to have an office there, but it sounds really nice. It's a very small space, and I share with two other illustrators. Is anyone German here? Are you from Bavaria? Oh, part German. Because I got that's a beer mug. I use it as a teacup. It says "da home." That means at home in Bavarian, in which I kind of think it's kind of cool. So it's not two computers. I have one computer. I work on laptop, and I finally invested and bought the big screen, 23-inch. And people think I'm crazy. I still work on laptop because I do so much computer work. But I love working in my studio, but I hate to get stuck anywhere. And if I have laptop, if I feel like it, I can wrap up and go anywhere. And I love the fact that I can work anywhere. So I refuse to get desktop. I never own the desktop. And it's great. So I love it. And this is a wall in front of see, that's the computer. So I have a wall full of things I like or things people give me. And what I'm proud of, check out almost to the top to the left. Yes, I get Christmas card from Playboy. I think that's kind of a big accomplishment, no? And these are the materials I use. I draw on paper, watercolor paper with ink and brush, and I scan it in and work on the Photoshop. So I have different inks ready, and the one in the middle, Dr. Martin's Black Star. Anyone who uses black ink or like do comics, that's the ink. That's the ink. Try it and test it, road test. I tested every single ink, and that's the one. And I highly recommend it. And sometimes I work on minor and things, so I have special ink for film. Sumi ink I don't use that much, and the red ink occasionally I use. And that black thing in a big jar, it's just water. It gets dirty because every time I rinse my brush, I use brush cleaner, that dirty thing in the front, and then rinse it off in the water, which keeps my brushes alive for a long time. So that's a good thing to do. And I don't know if you can see on the computer, there are reference materials. You can see, not the pugs are just the wallpaper. Pugs are cute, but that's just a wallpaper. So I have reference materials open. Like, remember when you're working on illustration, if you can get reference materials, get it, because it makes your life so much easier. And I was drawing, you've seen that final illustration all the way in the beginning, but I know it's a guy with a backpack, and of course I can draw a backpack from my head, but if I used a reference, it's more believable. It's a guy who got stuck in, going hunting in a blizzard. So I wanted him to have this specific type of backpack. So get reference materials, that's always good. And this is kind of what I'm proud of. I don't know if you can see, but I have about 30 folders full of, no, wait, is it 29? Yeah, 28. 28 folders full of sketches from the beginning of my first job till now. And I can find anything according to, everything's numbered, everything's organized, everything's filed, and I can get any job back from those files in seconds. And like being an illustrator is not just about drawing and painting the images you like. Once you become an illustrator, you kind of become a small business, and you're the owner of small business and you have to run it. So it's important to organize your paperwork, organize your studio. If you do 100 jobs a year, you have to take care of 100 invoices. When did the invoice sent out? When did you get money? You haven't gotten the money, then you have to harass the client to get money. All these things comes on the side of you actually doing your own illustrations. So start being organized in the beginning helps you a lot. And just keep that in mind. By the way, this system, actually, the guy who gave me the first job, remember, Tom Cruise? I was about to throw away all my sketches because, I drew 100 Tom Cruise faces that doesn't look like Tom Cruise. And he's like, oh no, you can't throw anything away, because when you start doing lectures, these things are very helpful to the students. So that's why I drew everything on Xerox paper, all the sketches and thumbnails. And when the job's done, I put in a clear, what do you call it, pockets, and put everything in, put the job number, the invoice number, and put it away. So, I started right in the beginning, so it was easy. Last week, you guys know Edel Rodriguez, right? Yeah, Edel Rodriguez came to the studio and he's like, wow, you're organized. Yay, Edel said so. Anyway, my bookshelf. I know I do not like pandas, let me tell you. And this can be on the internet. I do not like pandas, but people think I do, and they gave me all the panda stuff. And they're kind of cute, so I put them all in my studio. So I have many, many, many pandas. The one that's facing the other way, this is the back side of the bookshelf, and you see the red hat? And the red hat is facing where I'm sitting. It's too bad I can't show you, but I was invited to speak in this smallest town in Mexico at the beginning of this year. It was a great trip, but it took 18 hours to go there. It was a long, long trip. And they were like, Yuko, I got this for you, and it's a mariachi panda. It's so adorable. So it's facing my way. So anyway, this is my bookshelf. What I'm trying to say here is when I was still in school, about second year in college, my fine art painting teacher said, you guys, you're still in school and I know you don't have money, but start investing in the books one by one. And by the time you graduate, you start making living as an artist, you have a whole library full of books that you love and you always use. And I still remember that word, and every time I buy a book, think about that. But anyway, so it was a great advice. And, just I don't know how much beer costs here, but in New York, beer costs like $5, at the bar. And just save the money here and there, and you can start making a great start of a library. So if you haven't started yet, start now. And this is pretty much what I collected. I have more in last 8 years, and I have a pretty good reference collection. And this is something I'm very proud of. And the German friend, do you know anyone in Taschen? If you do, can you tell them that like I should get paid because I talk about Taschen everywhere when I lecture. So Taschen is a German art publisher, and they publish all the art books, but they're beautiful, but they're inexpensive. And these are called icon books, and these are about this size, and less than $10. So 2 beers. That's where I started. I don't drink beer, but I started from there. Starbucks costs $5 too, right? Fancy drinks. And these icon books are less than $10 and like this thick, and cover to cover photo and graphic references. So say it's tiki style. Tiki style was popular in the 50s and 60s. So there are all these tiki menus and matches and the bar. My advice. And I'll talk a little bit about, yeah, I hate Japan, and I don't like to be asked why. And if I start talking about why I don't like Japan, like I can talk for 5 more hours. So let's not get in there. But when I finally got into SVA and moved to New York, my goal was to erase every trace of that I'm a Japanese artist. Why? Because I hate Japan, and I do. I still do. I haven't gone back 10 years. Can you believe it? But anyway, so I grew up drawing from comics and TV cartoons. That's how I started drawing, because I'm a Japanese kid, and I hated it because at some point what I've been repeatedly doing embedded in myself so much. All people see are Japan and comics and some Japanese woodblock print. And I was like, I want to learn how to draw and paint like Americans. And it's too bad, like someone asked me earlier, but like I threw away all my paintings from school. I wish I had some and I can show them to you. But, I learned how to draw and paint like Americans okay, but it was never me because obviously I'm not an American. So I had some struggles, and I talked to one of the instructors, probably second year in art school. And then it was like an assignment that I can do anything I want for but it has to be a large scale painting in my painting class for like a month or two. And I was like, I want to render this and that, and but it doesn't seem like who you are. Like, show me what you do outside of school. And I was drawing with ink and brush, just like, what I do now. But it was, of course, before art school and beginning of art school, so it's not as good. But then she looked at it and this is real you, and you should make these into paintings. And I was like, but these are just comics, and these are not art. And she said, who said comics are not art? Who told you that? And, this is who you are, and you have to really embrace the fact who you are and how do you draw and paint. And I had, there was a long battle between hating Japan and admitting that I'm a Japanese. But after a long while, I started sort of doing these images that I'm showing of sort of making fun of Japanese culture, and also making fun of non-Japanese people who get mixed up about Japanese culture or Asian culture. And I started having fun with it. And in the beginning, I was just doing it for fun, for myself, to just like trying to find who I am. And more comfortable I get. And then it got more and more fun. And eventually, I started getting calls to do jobs. Yeah, those like personal pieces you did of like Japanese, powerful Japanese women, because Japanese women are, like stereotype is like sort of submissive and quiet, but like I draw these like kick-ass, powerful women. And then I started getting jobs. And this is actually one of the first ones I did, and it's called Panda Girl, the first Asian American superheroine. And when I moved back to New York, like what surprised me about the Asian thing was that there is something called Japanese Chinese restaurant. I think if you're like regular Americans, it's not something funny, but if you're Chinese or Japanese, you think it's ridiculous, right? It is ridiculous. It's actually ridiculous. So I decided to make my Japanese Chinese restaurant is this, and which is looks like Japanese woodblock print, but pandas are Chinese, not Japanese. And the little bubble with the writing, actually it's in fake Cantonese writing. It's not in Japanese. I learned Cantonese a little bit, but I'm not fluent, so it's like probably Cantonese written really wrong, which kind of works. And then all the things she has are partially Chinese, partially Japanese, partially nothing. So that was the whole concept. And then I just did it for fun. And someone made it into, well, not someone, this small company in Australia, and decided to make this into a wallet. And by the way, I did not design this, so don't ask me why the button is there. This is not my design. I don't know, but it's kind of great. And so that's the inside. So like things got so much easier when I stopped painting, when I stopped trying to be someone I'm not, and just decided to be myself. And which is what I'm trying to teach my students in SVA too. And every time I have an occasion to come visit, and I try to tell everyone in the audience too. So, like, especially when you're close to graduation, you start to worry about, I don't have a style, I have to find a style. Style is not something you can look for and find. Style, if you haven't found one yet, it's actually in here, and you just have to look within, not look outside. And might not be as easy as you think, but once you realize that, you start learning about yourself and just express that, and you start finding your own voice in there pretty quickly. Oh, this one is, so when these nice Mexican people invited me to speak, they made poster by silk screening, which kind of is great. And they were like, can you make poster to announce your lecture? And I was like, what do I do? Like something Mexican, right? I was like, sombrero and donkeys, and like, maybe not tacos, maybe not. So I was like, lucha libre. So it's me as a lucha libre fighter. Does anyone speak Spanish here? Okay. So, and I made it into a fake lucha libre poster, but what it works is, Yuko, Shimizu, and amarillo. Amarillo means yellow, but it's the name of the organization who invited me. But it sounds like Yuko in yellow kind of like works as a cool ring name. And that's like, they made a huge banner. That's the organization, and that's one of the guys who own the organization. And I thought that was great. It's outside of the building, and it was in a town called Jalapa, and it's in Veracruz. I'm I think I'm going back there next year to do a workshop, so I'm pretty excited. Although I'm not excited about the 18-hour trip, but I'll manage. So, another thing about, finding personal voice and doing what you love. I think it's really important to love what you do. Love what you do, because if you don't need to love what you do, you should be in a business or banking. Well, banking, I'm not sure, but like I'm sure banking will give you more money than illustration. But you decide to pursue illustration because that's what you love. And then you should always try and create images that you love. And some of these images were created when I was still in school. And I started doing these images because, I was trying to find myself, find my own voice, and I needed to do a lot of experiment. So these are images that kind of came to my head, and some of them are big drawings. This one is like 40 by 60 black and white drawing, and some are small. Yeah, it was pretty fun. I like drawing dots. I really do. And some of them are smaller drawing. So, guest speakers, working illustrators, some of them are art directors come in and critique our work, and I show them, and they almost always say, I love your work, but they're too weird. I don't think you get jobs doing these. So in that situation, what do you do? And I thought about it a lot, and I was like, should I stop and do like businessmen in suits and dollar signs, because that might get me a job, but that would be a disaster, so I don't want to do it. So I kept doing, because I didn't care if that will bring me work, but I decided to pursue illustration because I wanted to do what I love to do, and I couldn't stop doing what I love to do. And eventually, what happened was these crazy, should not get me job images started getting me work. So this is one of the first one. It was for Playboy, and it was about natural disasters. And on the first stage of sketch, I did something more literal, like tsunami and the city. It was because it was about, disasters. And they were like, no, 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 that's not the reason we called you, because you do all these surreal images. And there are lots of photos of tsunami and earthquakes, and we print that photo, but as an opener, we wanted a strong image that shows the idea of natural disasters. So they let me do this, and then after that, like, more people started calling me for these weird images, and I started to get to do things I love that was not supposed to get me work. And the message here is like, you have to just keep doing what you love. And if you're passionate about it, don't stop, because you never know where it's gonna go. I mean, like, I'm sure it's gonna go in a good way. And when you're like drawing or painting, and sometimes you feel like, how many hours do I need to sit in front of this painting before I finish? And you keep looking at the clock every 10 minutes. That happens to everyone, right? And then also, what also happened to everyone, I'm sure, is you're so into it, and then you realize you haven't eaten all day, right? Doesn't it happen to you? If it hasn't, you should like make it happen to you, because that's the best part of being an artist. And like, from my experience and from all my friends' experience, that's when you do the best job. When you're into so much, while you're working, like while I'm working, I'm not sure if I'm creating good pieces or not, but usually what I had so much fun looks fun to other people too. So follow that. And this is actually Microsoft website. And Microsoft sent me this big ass PC and let me do whatever I wanted. The only restriction is that I color on PC. So it was a bit of a struggle because I'm so used to Mac, but I became bilingual in shortcut keys, which I was pretty proud. So I did these pieces. So keep working on things you love. Especially when you graduate and you are busy taking care of everyday things and deadlines. Take a time out of your busy schedule and do pieces you love just for yourself. And if you like it and it came out nicely, put it on the website. And I'm sure it might take a long time, but they will notice. They will notice what you had so much fun, and I'm sure that will get you work. And this is one of the big drawings. I thought it would be fun to show. I work on the wall. And this is the final. What's like this big? And this actually became an American Illustration 25 cover, and they printed round, which I thought was great. And it opens up to be a poster. So this is the last part of my talk, and this is about giving back. So this school in the Bronx, I did a mural for school in the Bronx, which I actually didn't paint. It's not that kind of a mural. It's a big computer file that they printed out and pasted on, but I worked on it with a designer who hired me on and off for 2 years, and almost no money. But it is for this organization called Robin Hood Foundation. It's a local New York organization. I think, I don't know much about the people who started it, but I think this is someone who grew up poor but became really rich in investing. And then he wanted to give back to New York City where he grew up. So the organization picks schools each year which is located in the poor area, and they donate everything for the library. So they actually hire architect, built the library, paint it, donate computers, books, chairs, everything, and including the mural. And it was a great way to give back to the community too, because I live and work in New York, and I did grow up in New York partially, but I did. And imagine you don't get money, but there is something you can get that's better than money. Of course, in the beginning, if you haven't made living doing illustration yet, it's important that you work on it, and then once you start making living, think about what else you can do with your work, which I think is a lot. And the actual rewarding feeling that kids from now on every year come to the library to enjoy books and hopefully enjoy the mural I made. And that by itself, thinking about it is a great feeling. So this is the part of the mural. And so since few years ago, maybe 3 years ago, I tried to do some kind of charity work to give back. And every year it's different. The mural took a while, but there are smaller projects all the time. And of course, you don't have to do everything. Just do the ones you feel strongly about. So this one is, you guys are hip kids, so you know Kid Robot, right? It's a toy company, and they do this charity thing every year, and they send you this the bunny thing. It's this big, and then you paint it and ship it back, and they do a show and auction off the pieces, and then the proceeds go to Save the Children Foundation. that's a great way of doing it, giving it back. So I actually didn't know how to seal this material, so I actually had to hire my former student as an assistant, and he's a graffiti artist, so he knows all the surfaces, and he primed it for me. Yeah, that was great. And this is a sketch. By the way, my sketchbook is a mess. I'm not a kind of person who do beautiful sketchbooks. And it's all important that there are days you can draw without worrying about anyone seeing it. So you can make a mess. And for me, sketchbook is like that. So I painted with this thing called one-shot oil-based enamel. Do you guys know? If you know, yeah, be careful. It's so toxic. It's gonna kill you. I actually locked myself in another room for my studio mate, and then like I had two fans blowing, and I didn't let anyone in because it's so toxic, but it's so beautiful. It's so shiny. You want to lick it, but like licking it will probably kill you. So don't ever do it. And it's almost done. And this is actually the final. It's only one. I just took photo from both sides. And then I don't have a good photo of the show, so it's a pretty bad photo. But they had a show, and it was like a big turnout, and there were like these hip kids like running around lining around the block, and so it was pretty a nice scene. And get this, I am proud I took a screenshot of my eBay result. So can you see how much it got sold for? $1,275. Thank you. So anyway, what I'm trying to say is, yeah, if I tried, I can donate $1,275 in cash to some charity, but it's really difficult, right? You understand. Like even those of you who are working, it's hard. But if you have talent, we have talent in art, and by giving up some time and have fun, I had so much fun working on this because actually this is not a surface I ever thought I would ever paint. So I had so much fun, and I was pretty happy with the result. The party was fun, exposure was great, and then someone's paying more than $1,200, $1,300 to buy this, which the money goes to a good cause. I think this power of art is stronger than just money. And I want you to remember this when you're ready to give it back, and you get a great feeling. So that's the end of the story.